In 2007, as a part of the Orange Box, Portal was released to the world. The puzzle platform game received overwhelmingly positive reception, surpassing Half-Life 2 Episode 2 and Team Fortress 2 in popularity despite all being a part of the same bundle. By 2011, 4 million copies were sold excluding Steam sales, and its accumulated Steam revenue estimates to $148 million. Following its booming success and numerous awards, Valve released Portal 2 4 years later in 2011, and was quick to be described by many as one of the greatest and most influential video games ever made. Portal 2 shadowed Portal's development. After the release of Portal in 2007, they instantly set their minds to Portal 2, with the first game having a team of about 7 to 8 people, and the second game's team stood between 30 and 40 people. Gabe Newell himself deemed Portal 2 the best game we have ever made before it was even released. Portal 2 received even more recognition than Portal did upon release, and its reviews were in the high 90s compared to Portal's low 90s. It's safe to say that the Portal series stands as a monumental moment in the history of gaming, and its impact has been everlasting. Valve games have a heavy history of modding. The modding scene for Source Engine games is monstrously massive. Most notably, Half-Life's modding scene is ever-growing and manages to produce mods that are themselves standalone games. From Half-Life came Counter-Strike, Cry of Fear, and Day of Defeat. From Half-Life 2 came Black Mesa, Garry's Mod, and the Stanley Parable. These games are still respected and adored now, with Counter-Strike's evolution to the modern CS2, Cry of Fear being timelessly enjoyed with an estimated number of owners ranging 3 to 7 million, and at the time of writing this, 410 people are playing it. Day of Defeat, putting it simply, has now flopped, but not entirely. It was still highly regarded and appreciated as a mod on release. Black Mesa went to overshadow the original Half-Life as the better way to experience the game. Garry's Mod has sold well over 20 million copies and has, for better or for worse, held its own corner of internet legacy due to what it has produced. And the Stanley Parable is just really fucking good. I've made 2 videos on the game. Portal 2's modding scene, although extensive, doesn't garner the same appreciation that other Valve source game mods get. In 2010, Blue Portals became public, an expansive mod to the game Portal that offered new challenges and concepts. The mod, although now overshadowed by many other mods, was impressive at the time. Following the release of Portal 2, Blue Portal's Extended Play came out in 2011, which expanded on the first mod while simultaneously introducing new ideas. This mod marks what can be described as the beginning of the Portal 2 modding timeline. Here's a brief summary of said timeline. In 2011, the aforementioned Blue Portals Extended released. In 2012, the team Hidden Valley had begun making Conversion, a mod that aimed to utilize mechanics from both Half-Life and Portal, which had its own custom elements. However, it was never released and was officially cancelled, and Hidden Valley had also said mean things to its fans. Rexora came out the same year that utilized the mechanic of energy balls and is still in the Steam store, with its reviews being very positive, and as a game it still holds up. Designed for Danger, still in 2012, was more adventurous than the other mods. It had the essentials of new puzzles and levels, however utilized new voice acting and branched from the game's canon during the middle of the story rather than continuing it. In 2013 and then released in 2014, Thinking with Time Machine had fully released and allowed the player to interact with the past versions of themselves, which added further challenge. The Core, still in 2013, although much smaller than the other mods with its reach and reception, it introduced a new and simple appearance to what a Portal mod could be. In 2014, one of the most influential Portal 2 mods at the time had fully been released after its demos in 2012. Said demo kept its fans excited, and once it became fully released, it was one of the first Portal 2 mods to have its own standalone Steam release.
Hello, and congratulations! You have been selected to take part in the Aperture Science Handheld Gel Testing Initiative.
Aperture Tag is a puzzle platform game that honed in on a very specific feature from Portal 2. Many mods decide to change location, extend plot, or utilize different features alongside the portal gun. Aperture Tag's originality comes from the complete removal of the portal gun entirely. Instead, the player, almost instantly, is given the paint gun. The paint gun, obviously, shoots paint rather than portals. Instead of firing a blue portal, it fires repulsion gel, which gives the player a jump boost, and instead of firing an orange portal, it fires propulsion gel, which gives the player a speed boost. In Chapter 6 of Portal 2, after Wheatley gains control and Shell and Potato Gliders fall far down into the facility to the older test chambers constructed by Cave Johnson, the gels were first introduced. The gels were stationary, spraying out of a tube that could be moved with the portals to reach the designated spot they were needed in order to complete the test chambers. This mechanic saw continuous use after its introduction in the main story and in the co-op mode of Portal 2.
I know that bed might look comfy, but we've got much to do, so please exit your room.
The gels themselves were inspired by the 2008 game Tag, The Power of Paint, designed by a group of students from the DigiPen Institute of Technology. The game's core mechanics is the use of a special paint sprayed from the player's paint gun to impart physical properties to surfaces which, in turn, affect the user's movement. The game can be played on Steam as it was ported over in 2022. After its release and an award won at the Independent Game Festival, Valve hired the project team to use its concept in Portal 2. The same game also heavily inspired lead director of Aperture Tag team, Eugenio Motinum Roman. When Valve announced the addition of gels in Portal 2, Motinum played Tag, The Power of Paint, and began considering the idea of the paint gun and the gel concept. After attending a Valve-hosted closed beta in 2012, Motinum straight up asked the Valve employees if they had ever considered or played around with the idea of a paint gun. Although a paint gun model was made for the game, the idea was entirely scrapped and cut with no additional progress made on it. After said news, Motinum began designing the paint gun, and its final design, used in the game, ended up being a modified version of a community-made variant with given consent, that is. Before developing Aperture Tag, Motinum was already experienced in designing maps using the Source Engine editor. His early work, particularly a test map featuring a prototype paint gun mechanic, received positive feedback from the Portal community. Encouraged by this reception, he officially begun developing Aperture Tag as a full-fledged product in March 2013, utilizing the Portal 2 authoring tools to expand upon his initial concept. A pivotal moment in the game's development came in May 2013, when Motinum visited the Valve's offices for a second time. Inspired by the visit, he decided to turn Aperture Tag into a full modification rather than just a map pack. By the end of the year, the game's test chambers had been fully designed, with Benjamin Thomas Bloodget assisting the programming in integrating the levels using a modified in-game level editor. In January 2014, the development team submitted Aperture Tag to Steam Greenlight, seeking approval to publish it as a standalone mod. Motinum preferred a full mod release over a map pack, explaining that it provided more creative freedom to modify the menu, interface, and core mechanics. The game was officially greenlit by the Steam community on February 19, 2014. Prior to its release, demo levels were made available in the Steam Workshop, giving players an early look at its gel-based gameplay. One of the most significant decisions Motinum faced was whether to make the game free or to have it be paid. Ultimately, he chose to sell it for $11 AUD, making Aperture Tag the first paid mod on Steam. The game launched on July 15, 2014 for Windows and Mac OS, requiring Portal 2 ownership to play. Despite being a mod, it gained substantial recognition, ranking among Steam's top 300 games of 2014. In its early development stages, Aperture Tag only featured pre-existing voice lines from Cave Johnson. However, by the final release, the game introduced Nigel, a custom AI personality core voiced by a dedicated voice actor. Additionally, the game featured an original soundtrack composed by Harry Callaghan, or Harry 101 UK, and Christopher McKevie, along with the song All These Walls by Aberix.
I'll give you a clue. The paint makes you jump very high.
As mentioned prior, the main focus of the game is that it has you using the paint gun rather than the portal gun. The game's story is set in the Enrichment Center following the events of the Portal 2's cooperative campaign. After waking up from a status chamber, the game officially begins and instantly we are introduced to the personality called Nigel. Nigel was designed by GLaDOS. His model is a rip from the fact sphere with a recolored eye. His personality is unclear, however it is certain that he is very loyal to his protocol and seemingly cares about his test subject, the player character. Nigel was voiced by Chris Morale, which seems to be his only voice acting or acting role entirely. Nigel immediately then throws the player into the testing initiative.
Yes! I know this experiment will go without any problems. I can see it in you.
Aperture Tag's intro sees you leaving a rundown version of a similar starting room in Portal 2. where you would have been introduced to controls, and shortly after that, Wheatley. In Aperture Tag, you awaken in your pod in the bathroom, and instantly all props and furniture are pulled away and the door is opened, and Nigel urges the player to get started. The intro before receiving the paint gun is quite boring and is mainly there to gain a sense of the atmosphere. For whatever reason, the exterior to the room is what looks like an apartment, and once you leave the apartment, you see the inner workings of the enrichment center. Not only is there an excursion funnel, but there are walls around that mimic the real world. The player also sees turrets. Rather than the sleek white turrets, it is instead older, bulkier turrets with no casing. We are also introduced to the laser and laser cube before receiving the paint gun. Aperture Tag is reintroducing elements from Portal 2. In Portal 2, they were brand new and exciting and required an introduction. However, in this game, they aren't new, and they aren't exciting, and instead they require the player to remember them. After grabbing the paint gun, we are shown how we move around from chamber to chamber. The pneumatic diversity vents are cut apart from Portal 2, and it allows us to see the center more clearly through transitions. So I have about 2 hours worth of Aperture Tag gameplay that I recorded instead of splitting it up. So the rest of the gameplay section isn't going to have me speaking over it. Well, here and there. So the next section is going to be the gameplay part of Aperture Tag, so you're going to be seeing the game, simply how it goes, whatever it is. Yeah. There's not going to be much of me talking. There's going to be a segment of just gameplay stuff. So, I mean, I don't know how long that is now, recording this, but if you want to just skip gameplay, I'll put a time code there. That's when it's done. Just jump there if you're sick of seeing the game, or at least just the gameplay. So yeah, if you're eager to see the game, just keep watching. There'll be a title card. Once it's done, there'll be another title card, so you can look for that. Just letting you know. Hopefully you won't have to see me again. Who knows? I would also do the thing that YouTubers do, where they're like, oh, only 30% of you are subscribed. However, I'm not able to see it. I don't have enough subscribers or interactions or anything to see it. And for some reason now, YouTube wants you to get YouTube Shorts views to do anything, which is really, really fucking stupid. So, if you see any YouTube Shorts on my channel, I apologize. That's just to get those numbers up. But, I'm gonna assume barely anyone watching this is subscribed. I don't know. I can't tell. So, just click the red button. It's bright. It's cool. It looks big. Click it. Yeah. Enjoy the gameplay part. The game's pretty cool.
And the song. Good luck. Okay, right, why don't you try firing your gun? See.
The beginning chambers are really boring, so I'm just gonna speed through them.
You solved that really fast. Well, very good. Nice. Okay, maybe it's time to introduce myself. I'm Nigel, and I will be your testing associate for this testing track. In case you haven't noticed yet, that green field, the Aperture Science Paint Gun Activation Field, also known as Fizzler, will activate and deactivate your paint gun. I realize that painting is all good and fun, but cleaning that stuff up is horribly expensive. So just please only spray where you think is necessary. Our Aperture Science sentient washing servos will thank you. Now this is the Advanced Jumping Training Course. It will teach you, ideally, how to navigate through future test chambers. Nicely done! I love that final jump. Looks really fun. Sometimes I wish I had legs so I could do what you do, but then I remembered the other things we do to test subjects. I probably shouldn't have said that. Don't worry, I'm sure you'll be fine.
Look at this! I just looked at the documentation for these big monitors. Let me show you myself. Sweet, isn't it? Now you can look at me. So it's not as creepy knowing you're being watched, 'cause you can watch me too. How cool is that? Oh, the door. Let me get that for you. And a song. Good luck. You seem to be getting the hang of this. See you on the other side. Although I can see all the time you're in the ventilatory dispatch system.
Now this is where the fun begins. A real puzzle. You will have to use all the skills you've learned in the previous chambers. Let me put some ambient music on to get us in the good puzzle-solving mood. Good luck.
Malfunctioning, so we will have to turn your noise for another test, which we will decide to. It was supposed to be solved with good stuff, I'm sure. I see you drive. I couldn't have done it better myself. Now, we have to find the fountain.
It has a fun look.
The average human doesn't have the reaction times required for this test, so I would shout out the directions you gotta go. This really helps Alex survive rates. In the game,
Wait, could I? Okay.
Impossible jump ahead! You did a really good job out there. You flying around all over.
He's in the bush. The bush.
No more recycling tests. It's all brand new from now on.
Oh.
Sorry, but this test does not have a connected vacuum delivery system. still in alpha state. This chamber can be quite hard to nail down on the first try, so I drained out the goo. So don't be afraid if you fall down. Use the stairs to get back up. Okay, now we just have to find a way into the entrance of the test. What did you do? What is that noise?
Oh. It still has that element of Portal that, like, once you realize something, it feels so good. Which is very fun. Oh.
Alright.
But it's still very,
Let's do the
it's so
actual
makeshift
testing.
still.
So now we know what that noise was. That's one mystery solved. Unfortunately, I cannot drain that goo. So change of plans. Be careful. Thanks, science. I thought our testing spree has come to an end. Proceed to the next chamber.
That was crazy.
Introduction to Fizzler. This one should be pretty easy. And the song. What? What is this? No. How do I get rid of it? Okay, login. User Nigel. Subject.
His music.
WB. Audio controls. Password. I don't know a password. Let's try password 1. No. Password 2. No, oh wait, I got it. I think I got it. And there. So sorry about that. I don't even know how that got there. I mean, why do they even have this kind of music in the music library? Unless it was part of the test and I screwed it. Well, if it was, the damage is done now. Just test. I'll fix this mess. This might have been your best performance yet. Unfortunately, the metal music was part of the test. So this test does not count towards your performance.
Fuck.
Sorry. Good, but not perfect. But we still have plenty of time to work on your issues. The time I said we were not going to recycle old test chambers, it turns out I was wrong. Have fun.
Oh, I vote. Oh.
Just because it's not an original test, it does not mean it isn't valuable. Proceed to the exit. This test does make use of portals as testing elements. If you've never bumped into them before, they're pretty straightforward.
Oh.
Thingy goes in, thingy goes out.
Okay.
See, portals are a piece of cake. Nothing out of this world. If you ever forget why we do this, it's because of science. But more importantly, for the future. Because testing is the future, and the future starts with us. But more importantly, science.
Oh, you can't get through that.
Good luck.
Oh. Look at that. Ooh.
You are doing well. I'm actually starting to believe you can beat this experiment. Alright, this is our final chamber. If you solve this test, it means you are eligible to perform a series of highly dangerous procedures. And that was what we were testing for. Another mystery solved. For you, I knew from the very beginning. We did it! And now to save the world of Aperture Science! As I said, you made it through the experiment, but if you want to survive, you have to listen to me and do what I say. First thing, jump over that gap. Now go through the door that says authorized personnel only. Don't worry, you're authorized personnel now. That, my friend, is what keeps this whole place alive and running and working. It's the Aperture Laboratory's Stability Stable Energy Reactor. Sorry about the interruption. Aperture Science is now upgraded to a new ulcer, which means this one has to be shut down as it's useless. However, this process is quite dangerous and has to be done manually. There are 2 buttons. Go ahead and press 1. As long as you press 1, we should be fine. No, I mean the other one. If you do not follow simple instructions, then we do not have a chance at succeeding. You're lucky this was not a critical step. After you catch your breath, you stop for even a second, you are a dead test subject. No time to lose. Go!
Boom! What the? Oh. Okay. Can this be... Oh, it can. That's... Ugh.
Terrific navigational skills there. This has been a very successful experiment, so far. Oh, I should mention, you were never authorized personnel. Me saying that was part of testing protocol. You were just an average, unimportant test subject.
Okay. Thanks, man. Oh, so back to the tubes.
But you are most definitely above average.
Oh, he's here now. Oh, shit.
Be wondering, what are we testing for? How is this going to end? Where else has Nigel lied to me? When did I learn his name was Nigel? Why does it look like I'm outside? Where is he getting with all these questions?
Cool. Try something.
Okay, so we need some questions to push our testing forward. Give you a reason to keep you engaged with the test. How do we know you are not going to idle for an hour before you solve this test chair? See? Even I have questions that need some answering. still idle for quite a while, just doing nothing,
What?
supposedly thinking how to solve the test. Oh yeah, you did a terrific job. Keep it up.
First one.
Your papa and mama should be proud. Who designed this testing protocol? Now this test chamber is located in a real desert. Don't worry, you'll obtain a complimentary Citranium can at the end of the test. I will. Citranium. It's science in a can. Just head over to the vending machine and... well, it seems we've run out of Citranium cans at the moment. Do you feel angry at the end of a test chamber? Or alone? Or depressed? The new Aperture Science Exotic Location Station will eliminate all of those feelings by simulating the authentic outsides that humans were born to roam. Good job! If you think that you still experienced a negative emotion while testing, fill out the appropriate submission form at the end of the test.
Bring up 80 forms.
A not so fun fact, the water in this test is recycled from the old test chambers we were solving a couple hours ago.
Well, this is bound. Oh. And then. Look at that. Ah. That makes sense.
Nice flying there. If my calculations are right, you came into contact with 0.21 milliliters of your own pee. This chamber only uses the blue gel, but don't let that get to you. This is one of our toughest puzzles. Whoever designed this has evil intentions and no mercy at all. But I am sure you'll do just fine.
Then.
The previous Aperture Science Exotic Location Station was so calm and peaceful. I hope it helped you with your thinking. Also, I'm not allowed to transform the Aperture Science official nomenclatures into acronyms now, so we'll just have to live with it. Although it will not be long for you. Because we are near the end of the test, of course. This is it! The last puzzle chamber! The final picture! The maybe not so grand finale!
I mean, it was right though, so that's kind of cool. Wait, what's up?
We are almost near the end of the test chamber now. Do not let me down.
I have both, which isn't a good sign. He's quick.
I can't shed out too many details, but get ready. Aim and fire!
Oh.
And someone from industrial engineering will be fired too. Well, so long for a dramatic and grand finale. And that concludes our testing. I must say, you were a great test subject, and I am deeply saddened by your fate. Oh, I wish there was something I could do to save you, but you should know by now. Testing protocol. I've looked into it, and this one does have its good reasons. So there's nothing I can do now. I will always remember you deeply. You know, you were my first test subject, and that means a lot, even to a simple personality sphere like me. Farewell, my test subject. Oh, I know. There's this loophole that I can apply so that there's no reason for you to die. Oh well, I guess I'll just pick another test subject at random. Choose a random test subject, add a little science, add some heat, and learn a new thing. For the people who are still alive.
Okay. What? Okay, so I've looked something up. There's another ending. Yeah, there we go.
Again? You did your business not so long ago. Why do you even bother with exploring your surroundings? It's not like you're going to encounter a life-changing moment.
Boom. Now.
Now that you got that out of the way, we can go back and finish the test chamber. We are almost near the end of the test chamber now. Do not let me down. And that concludes our testing. I must say, you were a great test subject. Testing procedure says there should be a fire here where you die, and that should have concluded the end of the test. Oh, I shouldn't have said that aloud. Although I am very glad you did not have to die. Give me a minute. Okay, so your personality fits those of a previous test subject. She almost blew up the whole facility and killed my boss once. So I have instructions to let you go to avoid any future problems. Go through the door. This elevator will take you to the surface. We won't meet again. This is it. Goodbye. You know, you were my first test subject. You will always have a deep place inside my gears. Farewell, my human test subject.
Oh, I lost it. Oh. Okay, so that was a better ending. It's fun. I remember it being a lot harder, but I guess it wasn't that bad. So, well, I'm not gonna touch this game for another 3 years.
Are we starting already?
Aperture Tag's plot and story is quite minimal, as it's heavy reliant on the gameplay rather than its lore progression. It's understood that the game takes place after the events of Portal 2 and the Portal 2 cooperative campaign, a campaign which was quite disjointed. The Portal 2 co-op campaign houses 6 chapters. The first 4 chapters are pretty standard, happening in quick succession from the other with no real story or plot progression to them. Chapter 5 is slightly different. The players are dropped into the defunct Aperture testing spheres encountered during single player, and the final chamber of the chapter is halted by a large vault door holding frozen humans inside, and then Atlas and Peabody are destroyed. Then it's Chapter 6. Even the name is different. Chapters 1 through 5's names are tied to what you learned in the chambers. Chapter 6 is just called Art Therapy. Set after the conclusion of the Mobility Gels course, GLaDOS has reassembled the bots for testing again and claims that it has been 100,000 years since they were last reassembled. As the testing progresses, the bots are able to observe the defunct surroundings of the Enrichment Center, which GLaDOS assures them is part of an art exhibit. Further on in the course, players will be sent to a robot assembly annex station to repair their own assembly machine, as GLaDOS finally makes it clear that it has only been a week since the Mobility Gels course, and that she needs their help in restoring her control over the facility as something is overriding her controls. At the end of the course, both players are sent out of the testing area to resolve the problem in a control room housing a prototype chassis of the central core. And then GLaDOS adopts birds or something. An Aperture Tag takes place after all of that. I suppose it does make sense why everything appears so run down. You start in a similar status chamber as to what the frozen bodies in Chapter 5 of the co-op campaign are found in, meaning you the player, have a cameo in Portal 2. And it makes sense why it's some random core named Nigel running you through the course rather than GLaDOS, because she's having fun with some birds or some other random frozen test subject. Most of the chambers are quite lively and new, but a lot of them also feel very handmade and put together. Some chambers show exposed walls and use old Aperture mechanics, and many times Nigel has the player running around behind the scenes, most likely because GLaDOS is doing her own thing that Nigel, and most likely other random personality cores, have the test subjects do the things that they cannot, because they don't have the same control that GLaDOS does. The plot and story of Aperture Tag can primarily be split into 2 separate sections, the first section being Chapters 1, 2, and 3. The first 3 chapters have you running through the Enrichment Center as we know it from Portal 2, getting accustomed to the paint gun. Although the chambers aren't the same as those in Portal 2, they feel and look quite similar. As the player makes their way higher and higher through the Enrichment Center in the first 2 chapters, not much plot progression really appears. It's primarily test after test. Although, these tests feel almost neglected and last minute because of how much they don't connect. Many times Nigel comments how tubes aren't connected between the chambers and how we must figure out a way to the next chamber. Instead of stepping into an elevator or walking through a door, there's just a hole in the ground with a vacuum, and we have to find it. In the first 2 chapters, the chambers have the same look as the Aperture's chambers from the 50s to the 80s. This implies that either these chambers were made back then by Cave Johnson to further his development and practice of the paints, or that it's simply a mix and mash of old chambers that Nigel has had to hastily put together. Many things about these chapters feel rushed and just slammed one after the other. It's in Chapter 3 that the chamber's appearance is more similar to the modern day Aperture as the player has progressed through the facility. But the main event of all of these chapters is the end of Chapter 3, when Nigel directs the player to the ALSSER. The Aperture Laboratory's Stability Stable Energy Reactor. Nigel tells us that we have to enter it and that we have to disable it. And to further show how much of a chill guy Nigel is, he gives some awful instructions. Although it isn't entirely his fault, the reactor's deactivation sequence is poorly shown to the player. There are 2 buttons, both of which labeled 1, and so Nigel tells the player to press the button labeled 1. Of course, the first button you push is wrong, and the second button you push has made the reactor unstable, and uh-oh, that shit is gonna blow. After pressing whichever button second, the player has 60 seconds to escape using both gels to their advantage. This moment in the game garnered many mixed reviews. Some loved having to use their skills and quick thinking under pressure to escape imminent danger, and others found it stupid for a puzzle game to become a platformer requiring precise timing, but they most likely died too many times trying it and so pressed the skip escape course button like a pussy and wrote an angry review because fuck you, that's why. After doing a final jump into a bright light, escaping the exploding facility, Chapter 3 concludes. The first section's main star attraction was the ALSSER and its cool, crazy, and wild escape course ending in ascension to the ever-so-real heavens above. After escaping and landing in some water, we enter Chapter 4, the final chapter of the game. Each chamber in this chapter is styled after a different biome for whatever reason, but it looks like most of the funding went to these. It utilizes multiple obstacles from past chambers to make each chamber challenging and unique, and if it doesn't sell it, Nigel is there with you every step of the way. Most of what we learn in this chamber is that this is the main part of the testing initiative, something Nigel loves to talk about. Each chamber is unique in its approach, and although the appearance is just a cube with a painted wall and some mountains or even space, it feels incredibly refreshing and exciting. Despite its new and improved appearance, cracks still ruin the realism. Where tubes deploy cubes, the aperture paneling can be observed, and in the final test chamber, we can see a hole in the wall exposing that we are still in the depths of the facility. The final chamber's difficulty is rewarded with a platform ride similar to what the player goes through in the first Portal game. As Nigel monologues, his words turn sour, and his intent becomes malicious. We learn that we are his first and favourite test subject as he leads us to an open pit of fire. As we burn, he realizes that he didn't have to kill us, and could have used some loophole to prevent it. Almost sweet. If, for one, we weren't dying, and if he didn't follow it up with an oh well. As we burn, he singingly talks about his process of just grabbing a new test subject, showing how meaningless not only we the player are, but test subjects as a whole to Aperture Science. We burn. Nigel delivers some cold as fuck line about being still alive or something, and then boom, roll credits, game done. Or is it? The main ending most people probably achieved is dubbed the bad ending, and although it's fun for games to have a fun hidden ending, this being the ending that many people would have gotten is so unrewarding that it doesn't leave them feeling happy or relieved, but instead defeated. I know that when I first played this game and got this ending, I was pissed and didn't want to play the game ever again. The ending is similar to that of Portal, where you are led to an oven to be turned into a cake. But in Portal, you have to escape that for the game to progress, and then you get to run around the inner workings of Aperture Science to hide and then confront GLaDOS for a rewarding experience and a good ending. In Aperture Tag, you burn and die and that's it. But as I said, this is the bad ending, which means that a good ending exists. Sort of. The other ending to the game is very easy to overlook. I mentioned before that in the last chamber, there is a hole in the wall. If you get to it, you find an observation room, with a window overlooking the pit and a button which, when pressed, closes the pit. When you do this, Nigel says he's instructed to let you go because of past instances and leads you to an elevator, to the surface, and you achieve freedom. Except it isn't freedom, and instead the roof paneling collapses and you are still trapped in Aperture Science. This is not a good ending, but instead plays a little Easter egg for those who are observant. Don't get me wrong, the game is fun and challenging and it's a fun experience, but the ending is such an unrewarding experience no matter which one you achieve, that this game ultimately ends up collecting dust amongst all the other games in your Steam library and is forgotten over time.
And that concludes our testing. I must say, you were a great test subject.
Now, in the intro, I sucked the proverbial throbbing hard-on of this game, and for good reason. It's a good mod for Portal 2. It was innovative, different, interesting, and quite a bit of fun. But as the game progresses, you find yourself asking more questions, such as, why did I spend money on this? What the fuck was that ending? And why was Nigel voiced by a literal high schooler? No shit to the voice actor, I think he did a pretty decent job for what he had to do, but it's just part of the questions I have. To sum everything up, Portal and Portal 2 are legendary gems in the world of gaming, and its modding scene was more than interesting and proved resourceful and thriving. Aperture Tag, being one of these mods, is by no means the best or the worst, but I heavily feel like it was entirely forgotten about. Also, Citranium is a pretty cool drink idea. I don't know, I like it.